I think it's a top fight for Terence Crawford, but Terence Crawford is a great fighter. He has a great defense. He has a good combination punches, but I think the weight class is no good for him.
One Manuel Marquez isn't holding back. He just cast serious doubt on whether Terence Crawford belongs in his new weight class. According to the Mexican legend, Crawford's skill won't be enough this time. Marquez didn't stop at Crawford. He had something to say about Canelo, too. He stated, "Canelo Alvarez is a good fighter. He defends well. But I think with his experience and power, Canelo has everything." Marquez gave Canelo his flowers, calling out his strength, ring IQ, and complete skill set. He sees Canelo as the total package, too sharp, too strong, and too seasoned. There's no hesitation in his voice, just pure respect for the champion's evolution. Coming from Marquez, this isn't hype, it's validation. But in boxing, even praise from a legend can spark debate. Just as quickly as Marquez praised Canelo, he turned critical when the topic shifted back to Terence Crawford. He didn't mince words, pointing out a real concern many fans have been whispering about. For Marquez, it's not about skill, it's about size, weight, and the brutal reality of boxing's divisions, and he made his stance loud and clear.
I don't like the fight because Terence Crawford is a good fighter, but in the sport of boxing, it has divisions. You know what I mean? You know?
Right, weight classes.
You know what?
Right?
Yeah, weight classes
for a reason.
Weight classes for yeah. And Terence Crawford is a good fighter in super lightweight, welterweight, super welterweight, but I think more. I remember when Terence Crawford fought with Madrimov.
Yes.
He looks slow. He looks with no power, and three more divisions, two more divisions. I think it's a top fight for Terence.
Marquez questions whether Crawford can carry his power and speed into higher weight classes. He points to past performances that showed signs of struggle, especially against naturally bigger fighters. The message is clear. Talent doesn't always translate when the body can't back it up. In his eyes, going up in weight isn't a bold move, it's a risky gamble. Coming from a legend who's fought across divisions himself, that warning hits hard. Marquez isn't the only one raising the alarm. Strength coach Rob Aosta added more fuel to the fire, stepping in with a brutally honest take. He didn't sugarcoat the reality of Crawford stepping into Canelo's world at 168. Aosta brought up the one thing fans can't ignore, Canelo's chin and the kind of power he's already absorbed. His message? Respect the levels in this game.
What you think is going to happen at 168? Canelo's been hit by Triple G, one of the hardest punches in boxing. You mean to tell me that Crawford's going to go up there and just clean him out? Nah, that's not happening. So it's a lot harder. Now, do I think that the athleticism of Crawford will give Canelo props?
Aosta doesn't doubt Crawford's skill. He actually gives him credit for being athletic and tricky, but he draws a hard line when it comes to power and durability. Canelo, he reminds us, has taken shots from monsters like Gennady Golovkin. For Aosta, the idea that Crawford can just walk in and dominate is pure fantasy. The size, the strength, the experience, it's all stacked against him. And in Aosta's eyes, that's what makes this fight a whole different beast. Aosta didn't stop at power. He went deeper, breaking down the real issue behind Crawford's jump to 168. It's not just about the number on the scale, it's about how that weight is built and carried. He explained the difference between natural size and forced weight gain in simple, blunt terms. For Aosta, that gap could be the breaking point, and he made sure to paint a clear picture of why it matters.
We're talking about Crawford. Crawford has come from 140, 147, 154. He's going to skip 60 and go straight to 68. So let's just say Crawford walks around 180. Okay, walks around 180. He's going to come down those 12 pounds, make it 68. He ate his way up to 180. Understand that. He didn't work out his way up to 180. That's the difference. So if you're just going to eat your way up to a heavier weight, assuming because you sparred heavier guys that you can perform at a top level against a guy who's been there numerous times, very comfortable with his weight, and coming down from a heavier weight, That's a whole different animal.
He pointed out that Crawford isn't growing into the weight, he's eating into it. That kind of weight gain, he says, doesn't come with real strength or endurance. Meanwhile, Canelo has been living at that weight, cutting down from even higher and thriving. Aosta warns that experience and size don't just come from sparring heavier guys, they come from surviving real fights at that level. And against someone like Canelo, that difference could be brutal. Even with all his concerns, Aosta gave Crawford credit where it's due. He acknowledged that Crawford isn't just a boxer, he's an all-around athlete with serious dedication to training. From wrestling to weightlifting, Crawford puts in the work, and Aosta respects that. He also pointed out the strength of Crawford's team, highlighting the brains behind the brawn. But admiration doesn't cancel out reality.
So with Crawford being at 154, however much he weighs, now one thing I do give Crawford, he's incredibly athletic. He's not just into boxing. He does wrestling. He does weight train. You know what I mean? And you know, he has a good strength coach. He has a good strength team. You know, he has Bomac. So I understand how they can all work together to create this like this super fighter. But it's super hard to come from 154 all the way to 68 within a specific time frame and perform as if you were at 147, 140, 147.
Aosta made it clear even a super fighter has physical limits. Moving from 154 to 168 in a short time isn't just tough, it's risky. He explained that performing at the same level after a big weight change is almost impossible. No matter how good the training or team, the body doesn't always follow the plan. And against someone like Canelo, there's no margin for error. Aosta backed up his points with real evidence, reminding everyone of what happened the last time Crawford moved up in weight. He didn't say Crawford looked bad, but he did say something changed. The extra weight seemed to blunt Crawford's usual sharpness. Both he and his opponent landed clean shots, but neither looked shaken. And that, for Aosta, raised more questions than answers. We've already seen what happened when he went from 147 to 154, right? It wasn't a bad performance, but it kind of took away that edge. Aosta said, Crawford got hit with good shots. He took them well. Crawford also gave his opponent some good shots. He took them well. Aosta used that fight to show what might happen again, just on a bigger, more dangerous stage. If Crawford's power didn't carry perfectly to 154, how will it hold up at 168? And if his opponents can take his best shots, that changes the entire fight. It's not about heart. Crawford's proven he has that. It's about whether his weapons still work against bigger, stronger men. And in Aosta's view, that's a huge unknown. Abel Sanchez, one of the sport's most respected trainers, echoed the same concern, but from a different angle. He focused on the physical gap between the two fighters, calling it a mismatch from the start. Sanchez didn't question Crawford's skill. He questioned whether it would even matter. In his eyes, Canelo's size, experience, and durability make this fight hard to justify. And despite all the hype, he made it clear he's not buying in.
Yeah, it just is two different people. Yes, Crawford will gain the weight. Yes, he will be probably around 160, 162, 63 in fight time. But Canelo's a bigger man. Canelo is taking shots from big guys, and nobody has done anything to him. So I don't think this fight. I don't think, I've said it all along, I don't think this fight should happen. But the money was there for both of them, so it's being made. But it's not a fight that I would pay to see.
Sanchez pointed out that Crawford might gain weight, but that doesn't make him the bigger man. Canelo has faced giants, eaten their best shots, and kept walking forward. That kind of toughness, Sanchez said, can't be matched with just added pounds. He admitted the fight is happening because of money, not merit, and in a rare blunt take, he even said it's not a fight he'd pay to watch. When a veteran like Sanchez speaks that plainly, it cuts through all the noise. Sanchez didn't just question the fight, he went a step further and made a bold prediction. He believes this isn't just a size mismatch, it's a dangerous one for Crawford. In Sanchez's view, Canelo's power isn't something Crawford can avoid forever. It's not about skills or speed anymore. It's about what happens when a bigger, stronger man finally lands clean. And Sanchez is convinced that moment will come.
I think so. I think so, yes. And it's not because Terence is not talented. Terence is a talented fighter. It's just that you're talking about a big man who's used to fighting those big guys. Eventually, he will catch Crawford. Eventually, he will and punish Crawford and hurt him.
He made it clear this isn't a knock on Crawford's talent. He called him a gifted fighter. But talent alone, he said, won't save you from the kind of punishment Canelo can dish out. Sanchez spoke with the calm certainty of someone who's seen too many good fighters get overwhelmed by size and strength. For him, this isn't just a tough fight for Crawford, it could end badly. That's not hype, that's a warning from a man who's been in the trenches. Darius KO added his voice to the growing list of experts throwing cold water on the Crawford versus Canelo matchup. While he admitted there's technical interest from a pure boxing perspective, he didn't hold back on the core issue, danger. Like others, KO questioned whether Crawford has the kind of firepower to make Canelo respect him. And for KO, that missing threat changes everything.
I think at this point, he should definitely, that's a note for me. I don't think that Crawford has enough pop at 54 to deal with a Canelo. And we talk about a Canelo that can easily go till 76 to light heavy and deal with the power there. You know what I'm saying? I don't think Crawford got anything that would scare a Canelo. Now, would it still be an interesting fight? Yeah, from a boxing purist standpoint, I think Crawford has enough to be able to stay away from Canelo long enough to make it interesting points-wise. But I don't think he can hurt Canelo at all. I just don't think he can. But I know Canelo can hurt him. So that fight for me is less exciting after a while.
Lampley pointed out that Crawford hasn't truly tested himself at 154, let alone 168. He's watched Crawford dominate through the lower divisions, from 135 up to 147, and praised his skill along the way. But making such a big leap with so little experience at the higher weights? That's a different challenge altogether. Still, Lampley called it a fantastic fight, just one wrapped in real risk. And when someone with his history in the sport talks, people listen. Lampley didn't hide his admiration for Crawford. In fact, he made it personal. He's called Crawford's fights, watched his rise firsthand, and openly declared himself one of Crawford's biggest fans. But even with that deep respect, Lampley couldn't ignore the hard truth about this matchup. He drew a sharp line between admiration and realism, especially when it comes to moving up in weight. His tone was honest, not emotional.
First thought is whether it's 14 pounds or 21 pounds, it's a big gap. And it's not the kind of gap that fighters are normally able to easily deal with, particularly in the middle range of weight classes. You know, Terence Crawford has not fought at 168 pounds. Terence Crawford, to my knowledge, has fought once at 154 pounds. I saw him at 135, 140, 147. I watched his genesis through those weight classes. I think he's a fantastic.
He reminded everyone that Canelo is not just another opponent. He's from a different weight class entirely, built for 168. While some experts believe Crawford will be fine at the new weight, Lampley has also heard the opposite from those who think it's a reckless move. The split opinions only add to the tension. Even for a fan like Lampley, this isn't an easy fight to back. That says a lot about the stakes. Lampley then addressed what has become the central concern in this entire debate, Crawford's power or lack of it at 168. He questioned whether Crawford could do any real damage to Canelo, a fighter known for his toughness and durability. For Lampley, that's the heart of the matchup. Skill can only go so far if there's no threat behind the punches. And when it comes to hurting Canelo, history isn't on Crawford's side.
I regard myself as the world's biggest Terence Crawford fan. During the period of time when I was calling his fights on HBO, he rose all the way up to number one pound for pound. So I have nothing but the highest opinion of Terence Crawford. But Canelo Alvarez is a different fighter from a different weight class. And, 168 pounds is a long way up from 147. So I've run across a couple of expert opinions who say, oh yes, Terence will be fine at this weight. He's going to win. And I've run across a couple of other expert opinions that say, what is he?
He pointed out that Canelo has one of the best chins in boxing, possibly the best. Fighters have landed clean, hard shots on him for years, and no one has put him on the canvas. The only official knockdown was barely that, coming from a shot that pushed him into the ropes. Lampley emphasized that Canelo's strength isn't just in his chin, but also in his balance and legs. Against that kind of resilience, Lampley doubts Crawford has the firepower to make a dent. And without that threat, the fight becomes a steep uphill climb. Lampley didn't stop at general observations. He backed up his concerns with cold, hard examples. He pointed to the elite-level opponents Canelo has faced, many of them naturally bigger and known for serious punching power. Through it all, Canelo has stayed upright, unfazed, and unbroken. Lampley used those facts to draw a sharp contrast between Crawford's challenge and the reality of Canelo's past wars.
He's going in against a guy whom he can't hurt. That's the biggest question, is how does Terence hurt Canelo Alvarez, who to my way of thinking has the strongest punch resistance in the sport. Great chin, great legs. I think the legs are more of it than the chin per se. But the bottom line is, nobody's had him down on the canvas. The only official knockdown ever in Canelo's career was a situation where he got knocked back into the ropes by Miguel Cotto's little brother, and the referee ruled that the ropes had held him up.
He reminded everyone that Canelo has gone rounds with fighters like Sergey Kovalev and Dmitry Bivol, men far larger than Crawford. Even when Canelo lost to Bivol, he wasn't hurt, shaken, or dropped. That kind of toughness, Lampley explained, doesn't just come from skill, it comes from being built for the weight. In his eyes, Crawford may be one of the best, but Canelo is a proven tank against bigger artillery. And that's what makes this fight so dangerous. After laying out the physical mismatch, Lampley shifted focus to strategy and questioned whether Crawford even has a realistic one for this fight. He acknowledged Crawford's boxing brilliance, but made it clear, against Canelo, there's almost no room for error. If Crawford wants to win, it has to be a near-perfect performance. And even then, Lampley isn't sure that would be enough to survive, let alone dominate.
I think that I would say Canelo Alvarez has not been knocked down. He hasn't been genuinely hurt. He fought big guys like Sergey Kovalev, like Dmitry Bivol. He didn't win the Bivol fight, but I didn't think he was badly hurt in the fight. So at the end of the day, he's fought much bigger guys than Terence Crawford, and held up to that kind of punishment.
He floated the idea of Crawford pulling off a boxing masterclass, outclassing Canelo round by round without getting caught. In Lampley's view, that might be the only way Crawford gets through the night. But even that plan feels like threading a needle in a hurricane. Lampley didn't doubt Crawford's talent. He just doubts if that talent alone can overcome the raw size, strength, and experience Canelo brings. And that uncertainty says everything. Meanwhile, rising welterweight Paul Kroll also added his voice to the mix, offering a younger fighter's take that still echoed the same concerns. He didn't dismiss the fight's excitement or its value to the sport, but he kept it real. For Kroll, the danger is obvious, and so is the favorite. While he left room for surprise, his bottom line was clear. Unless there's a huge skill gap, size will rule the day.
What Terence's plan is to win the fight, other than a boxing paint job. If Terence is going to tell me my way to win the fight is I'm going to outbox him every second of every round and he's not going to find me, that's probably the right plan in my particular view. But, maybe Terence has something else in mind.
Kroll leaned on the old boxing truth that's been repeated throughout the debate. A good big man beats a good little man, especially when the skills are close. He respects Crawford, but he's siding with Canelo until proven otherwise. He didn't sugarcoat it or get caught in the hype. Like many others, Kroll sees the risk, respects the challenge, and knows exactly what's on the line. That honesty says more than hype ever could. Kroll wasn't one-sided in his take. He left the door open for something special, drawing a comparison to Floyd Mayweather's masterclass against a young Canelo. He acknowledged that big upsets can happen when there's a big enough skill gap. And with Crawford's explosiveness and mentality, Kroll sees potential. He knows Crawford isn't coming to survive, he's coming to win. And that alone makes things interesting.
Right, so, it's good for boxing. We don't know, you know what I mean? I think Canelo the favorite, you know what I mean? Just, it's gonna come down to if his skill set is, who has a bigger gap in his skill set? Because really, a good big man always gonna be the good little man if the skill is close or Canelo's skill. But if there's a big gap in it, like it was with Floyd and Canelo, Crawford pulled it out. Now, I can see, 2 ways because Crawford a little more explosive, meaner, so he gonna take more chances. He ain't gonna do no childish shit. He gonna try to fight, try to win. So that leave openings too, but I can see him, as he got older, he got maturer, you know what I mean? He looked good with the weight, you know what I mean? So, we don't know. It's one of them fights, we don't know.
Kroll pointed out that Crawford is more aggressive, more willing to take risks, and that could make the fight unpredictable. But those same risks could also leave openings, especially against someone like Canelo. Still, he noted Crawford's maturity and how well he's handled moving up in weight so far. In Kroll's eyes, the fight isn't black and white. There's doubt, there's danger, but there's also a chance. That's what makes this matchup hard to ignore. Still, Kroll circled back to the same key issue that's been echoed by veterans and analysts alike: power. He doesn't believe Crawford has enough of it to seriously hurt Canelo. As much as he respects Crawford's skill, explosiveness, and mindset, Kroll kept it honest. If Crawford's going to win, it won't be by knockout. It'll be by being smart, slick, and perfect for 12 rounds.